The man had a gun pointed at my wife and she didn't even flinch, didn't blink. She just raised one eyebrow and said, "You sure you want to do that, officer?" He had no idea that the woman standing in our doorway wasn't just my wife. She was Sheriff Rebecca Monroe, and he had just made the worst mistake of his miserable little HOA life. It all started with the mailbox. A bright orange notice was slapped on it, demanding we repaint it to the regulation hue within 72 hours. We'd only been living there 5 days, hadn't even unpacked everything, and already we were getting cited. There was no contact number on the notice, just a cheesy logo reading East Summit Neighborhood Safety Board, like something out of a Hallmark horror story. I thought it was a prank until 2 days later, another slip appeared, this time a $125 fine for Rebecca's SUV, parked squarely in our own driveway. That's when Rebecca pulled up the deed and confirmed what we feared. This property wasn't part of any HOA. So who the hell were these people? The next morning, some guy with a badge, a cheap radio, and a telephoto lens showed up, claiming to be Sergeant Daniels from the same board. His ID expired in 2021. It was 2025. When he demanded to inspect our garage, I told him to come back with a warrant or a time machine. Rebecca, ever the strategist, started a case file. Motion cameras on the property, logs, timestamps, and an archive of every bogus citation. We caught Daniels on video trespassing, measuring our hedges, photographing our bins, and dropping another slip. Final warning: non-compliant landscaping. Rebecca enhanced the footage, spotted the aluminum badge, the unregistered Baofeng radio, and whispered, "He's impersonating law enforcement." That made it a felony. 2 days later, another board member tried snapping shots through our fence. It wasn't random, it was a pattern. Trespassing, threats, fake citations. All designed to simulate real authority. "They're creating the illusion of power," Rebecca said, "banking on fear and silence. But they picked the wrong house." I looked at the paused image of Daniels approaching our porch, badge glinting under the light, and Rebecca gave that smile, the same one I'd seen her flash in court, right before someone realized they were about to lose everything. "That he has no idea who I am," Rebecca said, her voice low and edged with steel. "And I think it's time we changed that." They came back on a Sunday. No knock, no warning, just cones, clipboards, and a squealing megaphone like we were squatters on our own lawn. I was trimming the hedges when a rusted gray SUV reversed into our driveway and dumped 2 orange cones like they were sealing off a crime scene. "Attention homeowners," a voice crackled. "This property is under active inspection by the East Summit Neighborhood Safety Board. Please remain in your home until the assessment is complete." Rebecca stepped into the doorway with a dish towel in her hands, blinking like she just heard a raccoon order breakfast through a drive-through speaker. "Are they serious?" she asked, already shifting into that dangerous stillness that meant someone was about to regret something. The SUV doors popped open in sync. 3 men stepped out in tactical pants and faded polos that looked bulk-ordered from a militia-themed Etsy store. Center stage, of course, was Sergeant Daniels, clipboard in hand, flanked by 2 wannabe deputies. One with a multi-tool clipped like a badge, the other with a walkie-talkie not plugged into anything. I walked toward them calmly, phone already recording. "You're blocking my driveway," I said. Daniels raised his clipboard like it was a court order. "You've violated 3 mandates: hedge height, improper trash bin storage, and unauthorized signage." The signage was a craft fair welcome sign. "There's no HOA here," I reminded him. "You're trespassing." That's when one of his flunkies stepped forward and said, Sir, I'm going to need to see your ID. I blinked. For what? Failure to comply with community enforcement, he replied as the second guy muttered into a mic that wasn't even plugged in, non-cooperative male, possibly armed. I looked down at my pruning shears. Really? Rebecca stepped out, calm as a frozen lake, watching in silence as Daniel strutted forward and reached for his badge, and that's when she saw it. The emblem was wrong. It mimicked her department's badge but badly. 6 points instead of 7, a reversed eagle, mismatched font. Not just fantasy enforcement, they were impersonating her. She narrowed her eyes, not in anger but calculation. You boys always flash that thing on private property? She asked sweetly. Daniel straightened. This badge gives me authority in this neighborhood. Rebecca smiled. Interesting. They kept at it, measuring hedges, taking photos, handing us a fine schedule stapled to a pamphlet called Community Code Book. A Summit Edition. No author. No date. Just bold threats and fake statutes. That night, Rebecca added everything to the archive. They tried to impersonate my badge, she said quietly. That's not just trespassing anymore. That's second-degree felony impersonation. And maybe more if they're using it to extort people. Which they were. Over the next week, neighbors started whispering stories. Fines for holiday lights, porch flags, trampolines. Fake rules used to intimidate retirees too polite, or too scared, to fight back. Rebecca launched an encrypted Google Drive. Documents, interviews, faces blurred, but the names of the enforcers? Unredacted. Daniels. McCrae. Hallwell. Every one of them wore sheriff look-alike badges down to the stitching. And the fake citations kept coming, now by mail, probably afraid of our cameras. One even accused us of willful obstruction of community harmony, citing East Summit Code 14.3b, a statute that didn't exist. That's when Rebecca said, "Time to go to the meeting." The so-called board held public engagement sessions at the old rec center, leftover from a real HOA dissolved in the early 2000s. That night we walked in. A dozen folding chairs. A projector. Daniels lounging smug against the wall. The board president, tall, slick-haired, and oozing used car energy, welcomed everyone and launched into rule changes like he had an actual mandate. "Hold up," I said. "Who gave you the authority to propose these?" "We're the Neighborhood Safety Board," he replied. "Elected by whom?" Rebecca asked. "We don't need elections," he scoffed. "We're volunteers." "Then explain this." She held up a photo of Daniel's fake badge. Silence. Daniels snapped, "We don't answer to civilians." "You will tonight," Rebecca said evenly. He stepped forward, tense. The room felt ready to crack. Then he reached for his belt, pulled what looked like a real gun. "Back up," he ordered. "Meeting's over." People screamed. Chairs scraped. I froze. But Rebecca didn't. She stepped forward slowly. "I'm Sheriff Rebecca Monroe. Put down the weapon." Daniel's mouth fell open. His badge suddenly looked like a toy. "You're lying." "Want to test that theory?" she asked. "My dispatch is on speed dial. That gun just turned this into armed criminal impersonation." He blinked. Then dropped it. Rebecca didn't flinch. She stepped past him, took the projector remote and shut it off. "This board is dissolved. Effective immediately." You could hear a pin drop. Daniel's chest puffed a second ago, now looked like a dog waiting to be kicked. Rebecca didn't yell. Didn't gloat. Just pointed to his chair. "Sit." And he did. The rest of the room unraveled. The board president stumbled into the projector screen. One of the deputies tripped on his clipboard. A woman near the back tried to claim she was just helping out. Rebecca turned to her. "You didn't know you were trespassing or issuing illegal fines?" "I didn't." "Ignorance," Rebecca said, "doesn't make it legal." 10 minutes later, real deputies swarmed in, black uniforms, real badges, real radios. Daniels was cuffed, the pellet gun bagged, IDs checked, clipboard seized. Ortiz, a young deputy, held up a laminated booklet like a trophy. "You've got to see this," he told Rebecca. They were tracking people, color-coded threat levels, names, addresses. Your family had 9 infractions. This is a phenomenal final act. A payoff that's earned, emotionally satisfying, and thematically sharp. That said, here's a tightened, more narrative-polished version, paragraph style, preserving your voice and key beats while improving flow, tension, and clarity. They started with petty charges. Parked vehicle unapproved, trash bin out too early, hostile demeanor. That one had 2 stars. But the kicker? Possible false ID claim. Spouse may be impersonating officer. They had accused Rebecca of impersonating herself. She smirked as she read it. "That's a new one," she said. "I've arrested bank managers more subtle than this." Deputy Rayner, who'd worked under her for 7 years, approached with his phone. "Ma'am," he said, "one of the IDs we scanned matched a known offender, calls himself Board Security Chief. Name's Bryce McRae. Did 3 years downstate for impersonating a public official." Rebecca didn't blink. "Add another charge to his file." "Already did." But they were just getting started. As more statements poured in, it became clear, this wasn't just cosplay gone wrong. It was an organized racket. Fake citations mailed weekly. Residents paying fines through a digital portal that traced back to a PayPal account registered to ESNSB, the East Summit Neighborhood Safety Board. The account holder? The board president's 25-year-old nephew, a freelance graphic designer who didn't even live in the neighborhood. One deputy flagged a van parked behind the community center. Inside, boxes of printed citations, traffic cones, violation packets, and a binder labeled escalation protocols. The instructions inside were horrifyingly detailed. Stage 1, verbal notice. Stage 2, written citation. Stage 3, confrontation. Stage 4, tactical deterrent. That last part made my skin crawl. They had actual steps for how to calmly but assertively display weaponry to encourage compliance. In a neighborhood where the biggest crime in the past year had been a raccoon breaking into someone's pantry, they were staging psychological warfare. Rebecca stood at a folding table in the corner, flipping through ID copies and statements with a face carved from stone. No satisfaction, no relief. This wasn't a win. This was cleanup. The worst kind, the kind that follows betrayal. These people hadn't just harassed us. They had extorted retirees, bullied single moms. One neighbor paid over $900 in fake fines, too scared to ask questions. Another was cited for excessive gatherings after a birthday party for their 10-year-old. The safety board had weaponized a fantasy of authority and used it to build an empire of fear. As deputies loaded evidence into cruisers and bagged hard drives from the fake office, Rebecca turned to me and said, "They weren't pretending to be a homeowners association. They were pretending to be me." I didn't say anything. I just put my arm around her shoulder and squeezed. She wasn't shaken. Not really. She was angry. Earthquake angry. Quiet for now. By the time the cruisers pulled away, taillights vanishing into the dark, East Summit was already different. The silence was broken. It started with a flyer. Simple white paper taped to every mailbox, lamppost, and bulletin board from East Summit to Maple Ridge. Know your rights. Led by Sheriff Rebecca Monroe. No logos. No frilly fonts. Just plain black ink and the truth. And just like that, the air shifted. The hush that had blanketed the neighborhood, where front doors stayed shut and blinds stayed drawn, began to lift. People emerged. They leaned over fences, murmuring, "Are you going? Is it safe now? Did they really arrest that guy, the fake sergeant?" The night of the town hall, the community center lot filled by 6:30. Some walked in with folding chairs. Others carried manila envelopes full of printed violations. A few brought kids. Many brought rage. Rebecca entered last. Not in civvies. Not through the side door. In full uniform. Polished badge. Gun holstered. Silver stars on her collar. The room didn't erupt. It went silent. Like a courtroom before a verdict. "My name is Sheriff Rebecca Monroe," she began. "I live here. You've probably seen me walking my dog. And you've probably also seen people in fake uniforms, issuing fake fines, threatening real consequences." Murmurs. Nods. Someone whispered, "Finally." Rebecca didn't hold back. "There is no legally recognized HOA in East Summit. There is no neighborhood safety board. There is no authority whatsoever behind the citations, inspections, or tactical enforcement you've experienced over the past year." She motioned to a table beside her. Deputy Ortiz laid out the artifacts. Fake badges, citation books, a plastic vest, reading board enforcement in cracked vinyl. Rebecca held up a notice. This violation was issued to an 84-year-old woman for non-standard porch decor. A windshield. She was told to pay in 72 hours or face compliance lockout. Gas. Real ones. Rebecca listed the charges next. Gregory Dalton, alias Sergeant Daniels. Felony impersonation, criminal trespass, attempted assault, fraud. Leonard Brandt, board president, $32,000 funneled into personal accounts from fake fines. A plan to expand this racket to 3 more neighborhoods. They were building an empire of fear, she said. Door by door. One fake warning at a time. When she finished, a man stood up. Mr. Pallet Jennings. His wife had cried when they were threatened with liens. "What do we do if someone tries this again?" Rebecca didn't flinch. "You call me." Afterward, people didn't just leave. They lingered. They talked for the first time in months, smiling without suspicion. Rebecca stood outside for over an hour, shaking hands, taking names. A teenager handed her a citation for unlicensed sports equipment. A soccer net. She promised to make it right. A retired couple gave her the fake HOA mandate they'd been forced to hang in their window. "Don't throw it away," she said. "We're building a case." And build it she did. Within 2 weeks, every board member was served. 3 arrests. 5 civil penalties. Even the Etsy seller who printed the fake badges got questioned. The domain name? Seized. The PayPal account? Frozen. The rec center? Rebranded with a real community watch sign. Run by volunteers, not vigilantes. As for Sergeant Daniels, real name Gregory Dalton, his perp walk happened the following Friday. Right past my driveway. I was trimming the hedge. He wore the same vest as the day we met, now dirty and torn. Didn't say a word. Just watched as they walked him past the mailbox where he once taped that ridiculous final warning. Landscape non-compliance. Red duct tape and all. Rebecca framed it, hung it in her office. Above it, in hand-painted block letters, "Nice try." It became legend. Some neighbors still leave their porch lights on later now. Others open their blinds halfway instead of shutting them tight. Last spring we threw a block party on the anniversary. Freedom from Fines Friday. Rebecca brought cookies. I brought a Bluetooth speaker. We played AC/DC. No violations were issued. Just laughter. The kids call her Sheriff of Suburbia. And if I'm being honest, I think she likes it. But it's more than a nickname. It's a warning. No matter how quiet a neighborhood seems, someone is always watching. And if you're dumb enough to point a weapon at the sheriff in her own driveway, well, you'd better be ready to see yourself hanging behind her desk, right under two little words, "Nice try."